Namo Namaha, Priya Mitrani, Punarapi Swagatam. So without taking too much of your time at this stage, let's move on to today's lesson, which is lecture number 24, and we are going to do a revision of the third person pronouns and nouns for the masculine and neuter words in the dual, and this is part 1 of that revision. So we've been looking at the different forms of the third person pronouns and nouns, and what I'm going to do is, we are going to do in this lesson, do a revision of the Pullinga and the Napunsaka Linga words, the masculine and neuter words ending with an with a focus on the dual, but we will also look at them in comparison with the first, the singular as well as the plural, and do some practice around that. Besides that, we will also do some practice with some of the verb forms, and then focus also on building your vocabulary. So in this particular, next what we will do is to do a revision. So punasmaranam abhyasam cha kurma. So we will do a revision as well as a practice for the third person pronouns and nouns in the singular, dual and plural for the masculine words ending with a. And here, so this is a chart, and as you can see, it's a little bit of a complicated chart, but basically ekavachanam, dvivachanam, bahuvachanam asti atra. Kim, etat and janaka iti padanam rupani atra santi, and at the end I have added 2 columns which are prayogaha and abhyasaha. Prayogaha means application, so the verbs that are there actually help us to understand the application of the different vibhaktis, and the abhyasa would be just to give you a little more practice and add flesh to your knowledge of this particular forms. So here, let's start. So when I'll ask the question, and I'd like you to answer using the tat and the word janaka initially. So kaha asti, saha janakaha asti. Uttamam. So you've got a hang of that. Let's repeat it. Kaha asti, saha janakaha asti. Uttamam. Kau staha, tau janakau staha. Ke santi, te janakaha santi. Uttamam. And let's move on to the verb lik. So I will tell you a word and you tell me in the dual case. Okay. So छात्रः लिखति, तौ छात्रौ लिखतः. शिक्षकः पाठयति, तौ शिक्षकौ पाठयतः. Uttamam. And then in your free time you can practice it with the other forms that are here, as in the other vachanas. So ekavachanam and bahuvachanam, you can press the pause button and practice those as well. Moving on to the second case. So we have kam pashyati. So kam pashyati, tam janakam pashyati. Uttamam. Kau pashyati, tau janakau pashyati. Again, I'll draw your attention that the verb in the first case became staha from asti, and that is because the subject was becoming dual. So janakaha asti, janakau staha. In this case, we are saying kau pashyati, because the ti indicates that the subject is still in the singular. So it can be saha, sa, tat, or any other noun there, or bhavan or bhavati pashyati. So saha pashyati, kau pashyati, tau janakau pashyati. So that's the object there. And kan pashyati, tan janakan pashyati. Uttamam. Now the verb vad also goes along with the second case, or the accusative. So kau vadataha or kau vadati, and what I will do here is use the word sahodara. So kau vadati, tau sahodarau vadati, means he's talking to the 2 brothers. And now vachayati is a niche of vadati, to make somebody else speak. It's the niche of a similar group. It's not exactly of vadati, but vach becomes vachayati. Okay. So kau vachayati chhatraha, tau chhatrau vachayati. Tau chhatrau kim vachayati, tau chhatrau sanskritam vachayati. Uttamam. But you can fill it up with anything else. Okay. Tau chhatrau kavitam vachayati, etc., etc. Let's go on to the next one. Kena, and the verb is gachati. So kena gachati, tena janakena gachati. Kabhyam gachati, tabhyam janakabhyam gachati. kaih gachati, taih janakaih gachati. Uttamam. And here we have also the verb kridati. So kridakaha will be the one. So kabhyam kridati, tabhyam kridakabhyam kridati. Uttamam. And jalpati, which means to speak. So with whom can we speak? Speaks with the sahodara or agrajaha, elder brother. So kabhyam jalpati, agrajabhyam jalpati. Uttamam. Moving on to the next one, which is kasmai, and it can have two verbs, two kind of verbs that are used with it. So dadati, very typically dative dadati. So kasmai dadati, tasmai janakaya dadati, kabhyam dadati, tabhyam janakabhyam dadati, kebhyah dadati, tebhyah janakebhyah dadati. Uttamam. Now let's look at namaha. So with namaha, I will tell you, so guru jana or devaha. So two devas. So kabhyam namaha, devabhyam namaha. Uttamam. And yachati, to give, which is a synonym of dadati. Kabhyam dadati, janaka or not janaka. Let's say devabhyam only, devabhyam. So kabhyam dadati, devabhyam dadati. And pratyagam means comes back. So one of the applications of the dative is to give, but it is also in the sense of the purpose, for what sake or for whom. So when we are saying pratyagachati, it means he's coming back. So coming back can be either for whom or for what. So if we want to say for whom, so I would say kabhyam pratyagachati, and I'd like you to say kanishtha, for the younger brother. So kanishthabhyam pratyagachati. Uttamam. And if we'd like to say for what, so if I want to say for the school, he's coming back for the school. So kabhyam pratyagachati, tabhyam vidyalayabhyam pratyagachati. It means for the sake of the school. Okay, so that has to be clear there. Let's go on to the next one, which is kasmat. So, and the verb, associated verb is nayati. So kasmat nayati, janaka, tasmat janakat nayati. Uttamam. Anayati. Okay, so ani is the sticking to the nayati itself. We'll just finish the janaka in the dual and the plural. So kasmat nayati, tasmat janakat nayati. In the dual, kabhyam nayati, tabhyam janakabhyam nayati. In the plural, kebhyah nayati, tebhyah janakebhyah nayati. Uttamam. Let's move on to another verb for practice for the dual. So ani is for anayati. So I'd like you to say apanaha, shop. Okay, so kabhyam anayati, tabhyam apanabhyam anayati. Uttamam. Swikaroti, so accepts. So pitamaha, so accepts from the grandfather. So kabhyam swikaroti, tabhyam pitamahabhyam swikaroti. Uttamam. Moving on to the next one, which is the genitive or the kasya. So kasya karyam asti, whose work is there? Kasya karyam asti, tasya janakasya karyam asti. Kayoho karyam asti, tayoho janakayoho karyam asti. Kesham karyam asti, tesham janakanam karyam asti. Uttamam. And just some practice there. Griham asti. So it can be whose house. So kayoho griham asti, and I'd like you to say shikshakaya, gayaka. So tayoho gayakayoho griham asti. Again, so we'll do, it is those two singers' house. So kayoho griham asti, tayoho gayakayoho griham asti. Bhagyam, good luck. So good fortune. So for good fortune, we will say for good fortune, let's say lekhaka. So they've been lucky in their writing. So kayoho bhagyam asti, tayoho lekhakayoho bhagyam asti. They got the right publisher and made it famous. So, kayoho bhagyam asti, tayoho lekhakayoho bhagyam asti. Uttamam. And in the 7th case, let's move on. So, kasmin pritihi asti. Love. Kasmin priti asti, tasmin janake pritihi asti. Kayoho pritirasti, tayoho janakayoho pritirasti. Keshu pritirasti, teshu janakeshu pritihi asti. So another word here, vishwasaha, and in whom vishwasaha, let's take the word sahodaraha in the dual. So kayoho vishwasa asti, tayoho sahodarayoho vishwasaha asti. Uttamam. Let's move on to the last or the vocative case here, and it is he janaka agachatu in the dual. He janakau agachatam, not agachatu, agachatam, and he janakaha agachantu. Now let's take the verb khad. So if you want to say balaka, so he balaka khadatu in the dual. He balakau khadatam, plural. He balakaha khadantu. Uttamam. Astu. So I hope this is clear for you. Just we'll do a quick revision of the dual case alone. So kau, kau, kabhyam, 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 kayoho, kayoho, and with the verb tat. So tau, tau, tabhyam, 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 tayoho, tayoho, etat, etau, etau, etabhyam, 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 etayoho, etayoho, janaka, janakau, janakau, janakabhyam, 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 janakayoho, janakayoho. Hey, janakau. Uttamam. So let's move on to the next, which is the same practice, but here we'll do it with the neuter words. So let's look at the words here in the neuter. So kim asti, tat mitram asti, ke staha, te mitre staha, kani santi, tani mitrani santi. Uttamam. And let's do a practice with lik. So I'd like you to say charitram, or the character rights, and we'll do it in the dual. So ke likhataha, te charitre likhataha. Uttamam. And for part, so we can say kalatram. So the wife is teaching. So ke pathayataha, te kalatre pathayataha. Uttamam. Let's move on to the next one. Kim pashyati, tat mitram pashyati. Now just draw your attention. You are saying tat mitram asti, but that could also have been replaced with tat mitram pashyati. And here you are also saying tat mitram pashyati, but they are not identical, because now we are looking at the second case, which means what? It means that in the first one the subject is tat mitram. Okay, so tat mitram pashyati, the subject is seeing. But when I am saying tat mitram pashyati in the second case, the subject is somebody else. Saha tat mitram pashyati. He is seeing that friend. Or sa or bhavan or bhavati. That is something that we've already been looking at. So kim pashyati, tat mitram pashyati, ke pashyati, te mitre pashyati, kani pashyati, tani mitrani pashyati. So vad. So vad, I'd like to use the word apatyam, meaning the son. So ke vadati, te apatye vadati, means talking to the two children. Apatya means children in general. So vach. So vach means to make them speak. So ke vachayati, again apatyam, te apatyam vachayati. Uttamam. Let's go on to the next one, which is kena. So kena gachati, tena mitrena gachati, ke kabhyam gachati, tabhyam mitrabhyam gachati, kaih gachati, taih mitraih gachati. Okay, so let's do with creed, and we'll do the word creed with kalatram again. So playing with the creed, let's do it with apatyam, with the child. So kabhyam kridati, tabhyam apatyabhyam kridati, and jalp with the wife. So kalatram, kabhyam jalpati, tabhyam Kalatrabhyam jalpati. Uttamam. Let's move on to the next one, which is kasmai. Kasmai dadati tasmai janakaya tasmai mitraya dadati. Kabhyam dadati tabhyam mitrabhyam dadati. Kebhyah dadati tebhyah mitrebhyah dadati. Uttamam. And now let's replace it with namaha. And so let's see with whom namaha. We can do namaha to the wife again. So kalatram will become kalatrabhyam namaha. Yachati, to give. So to give we can say kendram. Kendram is the kendram, or let's take another one, mandiram. Mandiram is a good one. So mandiram, so which means here I am giving to the temple. Alright. So what will it be? To those two temples I give tabhyam mandirabhyam yachati. Uttamam. Pratyagachati. So pratyagachati can be from it can be from the udyanam or the garden. So tabhyam udyanabhyam pratyagachati. Uttamam. Let's move on to kasmat. So kasmat nayati, from whom is he taking? So kasmat nayati tasmat mitrat nayati. Kabhyam nayati tabhyam mitrabhyam nayati. Kebhyah nayati tebhyah mitrebhyah nayati. Uttamam. And let's do some practice with anayati. So if you want to say mandiram, from those two temples they bring, so tabhyam mandirabhyam anayati. And swikaroti, so accepts, from whom can they accept? So they are accepting from let's say the sansthanam. So from the sansthanam they are accepting, from the institutions they are accepting. How would you say? Tabhyam sansthanabhyam swikaroti. Uttamam. Now let's move on to the next one, which is the kasya, or the genitive. So and the karyam asti. So kasya karyam asti tasya mitrasya karyam asti. Kayoho karyam asti tayoho mitrayoho karyam asti. Kesham karyam asti tesham mitranam karyam asti. Griham. So let's talk about charitram. So kabhyam griham kayoho griham asti tayoho charitrayoho griham asti. And the last one, which is bhagyam. So kabhyam kayoho, not kabhyam, kayoho bhagyam asti. And we'll say that the kids are lucky. So the two kids are lucky, the two children are lucky. Tayoho apatyayoho bhagyam asti. Uttamam. Let's move on to the next one, which is kasmin, or the locative. So kasmin pritihi asti tasmin mitre pritihi asti. Kayoho pritirasti tayoho mitrayoho pritihi asti. Uttamam. Keshu pritihi asti teshu mitreshu pritihi asti. Uttamam. And let's move on to vishwasaha. So I'd like you to say kalatram again. So in those two wives we have faith. Tayoho kalatrayoho vishwasaha asti. Uttamam. And the final, the vocative. So hey mitra becomes hey mitre. Hey mitram, hey mitra, not mitram. Hey mitra agachatu, two of them. Hey mitre agachatam. And hey mitrani agachantu. Let's say with khad. So here again we'll get the kids into the picture. So if you want to say apatyam and you want to use the verb khadatu, so hey apatya khadatu, two of them. Hey apatyau apatyau khadatam. And for the plural, hey apatyani khadantu. So having done that practice, let's just do a quick recap of the forms in themselves. So ke, kabhyam, 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 kayoho, kayoho. With the tat, what happens? Te, tabhyam, 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 tayoho, tayoho. And what happens to etat? Ete, etabhyam, 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 etayoho, etayoho. Mitram, mitre, mitrabhyam, 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 mitrayoho, mitrayoho. And finally, he mitre. Astu. So we've completed that, but just trying to do this chart is quite a challenging exercise actually. So what I would also invite you to do is that once you have this chart, try and see if you can sort of emulate me in the way I conducted this particular study. So just try and keep your focus on the chart and see if you're able to do this question and answer all by yourself. Or if you have a partner or a friend, see if you can do this question and answer with that friend, because it's not just about being able to make the sentences, but also being able to ask the questions that are important and have the answers in your head, because then you would know whether what is being answered is correct or not. And I can assure you it's not a very simple one, but a brilliant one to get in your entire brain activated. So let's move on to a conversation. So I will invite Piyush to join me here. So we are going to have this conversation where we're going to try and apply the different cases in the dual for the masculine and neuter words, and I will also we'll ask the different questions. So we're going to do a conversation, and I will also interject as required in the middle. Tarhi.
नमस्ते आर्ये.
नमस्ते पीयूषा.
सर्वं कुशलं किम्?
आम भगवतः कृपया अथवा ईश्वरस्य कृपया सर्वं कुशलम् अस्ति.
अद्य प्रातः यदा भवती अत्र आयाति स्म तदा मार्गे कौ यातः के च यातः?
So yati means to go and ayati to come. So he asked me that when you were coming, yada bhavati ayati sma. Astu tada kau yatah ke cha yatah. So पुनः अपि पृच्छति किम्?
आम्, मार्गे तदा कौ यातः के च यातः?
उत्तमं. तर्हि अद्य प्रातः मार्गे द्वौ शिक्षकौ, so द्वौ शिक्षकौ, द्वे यातः and द्वे मित्रे यातः. द्वौ शिक्षकौ but द्वे मित्रे यातः.
तौ शिक्षकौ कुत्र यातः?
तौ शिक्षकौ विद्यालयौ यातः.
ते च मित्रे कुत्र यातः?
ते मित्रे गृहे यातः.
तौ शिक्षकौ कथं काभ्यां वा यातः?
तौ शिक्षकौ छात्राभ्यां यातः. शकटाभ्यां च यातः. Shakata is a cart, and just a sentence here, so it can be a carriage and a coach as well. So shakatabhyam yatah, chhatrabhyam cha yatah.
ते मित्रे च कथं काभ्यां वा यातः?
ते मित्रे कलत्राभ्यां सह यातः and यानाभ्यां च यातः.
तौ शिक्षकौ किमर्थं यातः?
तौ शिक्षकौ पाठाभ्यां यातः.
ते मित्रे च किमर्थं काभ्यां वा यातः?
ते मित्रे ताभ्याम् अपत्याभ्यां यातः.
तौ शिक्षकौ कुतः यातः?
कुतः?
कुतः?
अस्तु. तौ शिक्षकौ ताभ्यां छात्रावासाभ्यां यातः.
ते मित्रे च कुतः यातः?
ते मित्रे च ताभ्याम् उद्यानाभ्यां यातः.
तौ शिक्षकौ कयोः काभ्यां छात्रावासाभ्यां यातः?
तौ शिक्षकौ तयोः अन्यछात्रावासयोः अन्यछात्रयोः छात्रावासाभ्यां यातः.
ते मित्रे कयोः उद्यानाभ्यां यातः?
उत्तमम्. So you see, it's a bit complicated. So the question is तौ ते मित्रे काभ्याम और कयोः उद्यानाभ्याम. So कयोः उद्यानाभ्याम means from which or from which two gardens. Okay, whose two gardens? So here it would, the answer would be ते मित्रे तयोः उद्यानाभ्याम और तयोः नगरयोः उद्यानाभ्यां यातः.
आम्. तदनन्तरं तौ शिक्षकौ कदा यातः?
So तौ शिक्षकौ नववादने यातः.
ते मित्रे कदा यातः?
ते मित्रे अपि नववादने यातः.
तौ विद्यालयौ कुत्र स्तः?
तौ विद्यालयौ देशाभ्यां स्तः.
ते
क्षम्यतां. तौ विद्यालयौ तयोः देशयोः स्तः.
आम्. ते गृहे कुत्र स्तः?
ते गृहे तयोः नगरयोः स्तः.
धन्यवादः.
हे शिक्षकौ सम्यक् पाठयताम्. and हे मित्रे स्वगृहं गत्वा or स्वगृहे गत्वा पूर्णविश्रामं कुरुताम्. अस्तु. धन्यवादः.
धन्यवादः.
So let's look at the conversation that we've just had, and this time I'd like you to try and complete the dual cases along with me. So we had the question that Piyush asked me. He says that Namaste Arye, and then he said Yada bhavati pratah kale ayati sma, when you were coming. Kau yatah, who were going, or ke yatah. So the answer was tau dvau shikshakau. So for the masculine it was dvau. And I'm writing it for you because it is different for the masculine as well as for the neuter. So, dvau shikshakau, and for the neuter it was dve mitre. Okay, dve mitre. And what is important to remember is that when we do the counting in Sanskrit, we are counting in the neuter. So, we say ekam, dve, Trini, Chatwari, Pancha onwards, it is the same for all the genders. Alright, so Kau yatah, Tau shikshakau yatah, and Ke yatah, Te mitre yatah. Uttamam. Kutra yatah, Tau vidyalayau, or just vidyalayau yatah, and the other one was Griham becomes Grihe yatah. Uttamam. Chatrena saha becomes Chatrabhyam saha yatah, and Shakatena becomes Shakatabhyam yatah. Uttamam. On the other side, Kalatrena becomes Kalatrabhyam saha yatah, and Yanena Yanabhyam yatah. So like we see that from the third onwards, the forms for both the masculine and the neuter are the same. Kimartham yatah. So the answer is Pathabhyam yatah. And for the mitram, kimartham yatah? Apatyabhyam. For the two kids, apatyabhyam yatah. Kutah yatah? Answer, Chhatravasat becomes Chhatravasabhyam yatah. And the other is Udyanat, Udyanabhyam yatah. Uttamam. Moving on, we have Anya, so Kasya Chhatravasat, and the answer was Anya Chhatrasya Chhatravasat, and in the dual it will be Anya Chhatrayoho Chhatravasabhyam yatah. Uttamam. And Kasya Udyanat becomes Mandirasya Udyanat, and in the plural and in the dual Mandirayoho Udyanabhyam yatah. Uttamam. And the next one is Vidyalayo kutrastaha. Answer, Vidyalayo Deshayoho Staha. So they are in the two countries. And for the Nagara, so Grihe Kutrastaha. Answer, Nagarayoho Staha. And the last question was Kada. So Kada, the answer is Navavadane. Navavadane will not become Navavadanayoho because it is a definite time and there is no question of a dual arising there. And finally it was He Shikshakau Samyak Pathayatam. Please teach well. And for the friends it was He Mitre Purna Vishramam Kurutam. Rest fully there. So now what I'd like us to do is, let us see if we can piece the whole sentence together, put all the pieces together and make one sentence of that. So, tau dvau shikshakau vidyalayau chatrabhyam saha shakatabhyam pathabhyam chhatravasabhyam. But if you want to add the previous one, anya chatrayoho chatrabhyam, not the previous one, the next one. So, anya chatrayoho chatrabhyam. Now, deshe cannot come into here as in it's a destination. So, deshe is an adjective, not an adjective, but it's a location for the school. So, you will have to say deshayoho sthita vidyalayau. So, deshayoho sthitau vidyalayau navavadane yataha. So, let's try and do that one last time together. Tau dvau shikshakau deshayoho sthitau vidyalayau chatrabhyam saha shakatabhyam pathabhyam anya chatrayoho chatravasabhyam navavadane yataha. And finally, he shikshakau samyak pathayatam. Astu. Let's move on to the next one, which is the neuter case and the neuter words and their forms. So, te dve mitre kutra gachatah grihe. Then kalatrabhyam saha yanabhyam apatyabhyam udyanabhyam kayoho udyanabhyam mandirayoho udyanabhyam. And the same as before, where are the grihe? Grihe kutra staha? Nagare, nagarayoho staha, and therefore it will become nagarayoho sthite grihe navavadane yataha. Astu. And finally, he mitre purna vishramam karotu. Can we try and put that together in the correct order of the words? So it would be te dve mitre nagarayoho sthite grihe kalatrabhyam saha yanabhyam apatyabhyam udyanabhyam. But kasya udyanabhyam? Mandirayoho udyanabhyam navavadane yataha. Hey mitre purnam vishramam karotu or kurutam, not karotu but kurutam. Uttamam. So I hope you've got that whole thing together. So just see if now you can put again you can press the pause button and try and reconstruct that sentence for yourselves. Astu. But as we'll move on now, and you can take the time to do this by yourself later on. So let's look at the shloka from the Raghuvamsham. It is Raghuvamsham is one of the known kavyas of Kalidasa, and which talks about the whole dynasty of Rama. And in that one, the Raghu dynasty, of which Rama also was one of the most illustrious kings, in that kavyam, this is the Mangala Charanam. Tari Raghuvamshasya Mangala Charanam etat asti. So, what is the first one? It says, Vagartha viva sampriktau Vagartha pratipattaye Jagatah pitarau vande Parvati Parameshwarau. So, Vagartha viva. So, Vagartha viva. Do you recognize that form? We've had it before. Sahana vavatu. So, what was it? If you break it up, it was a sandhi vicheda. If you do the breakup, it becomes Vagarthau plus iva. Vagartha viva. So, Vagarthau iva. So, you have the dual there. Sampriktau. They are attached. Sampriktau. Vagartha pratipattaye. Pratipattaye here means for establishing, for having established the meaning, for having given us the meaning of the word. Vak is the word and artha is the meaning. For having brought this together, what do? Jagataha pitarau vande. Aham vande. I salute. Whom? Jagatah Pitarau. Jagatah is the Shashti or the sixth Vibhakti, but because it is a word ending with the consonant Jagat, it becomes Jagatah and not Jagatasya. Alright, so that's something we'll be looking at a little. So Jagatah Pitarau Vande. So Pitarau here, is it in the Prathama Vibhakti or the Dvitiya Vibhakti? First or second case? Yes, it is in the second case. Jagatah Pitarau Vande Parvati Parameshwarau. So Parvati cha Parameshwarah cha, the together a compound word, it becomes Parvati Parameshwarau. And is it a first case or a second case? You said it, it is a Dvitiya Vibhakti there as well. Now, what is the meaning of that? So we have, for the correct grasping of words and their sense, I bow to Parvati and Parameshwara, who are the parents of the universe and are connected together like the words and their meaning. So Iva meaning, Iva means like. So Vak Artha Viva. So just like they are connected, Parvati Parameshwara are, or just like Parvati and Parameshwara are so deeply embedded in each other, word and meaning are also deeply embedded in each other. So having said that, I'd like to recite it and I invite you to chant after me. Vagartha viva sampriktau Vagartha pratipattaye Jagatah pitarau vande Parvati Parameshwarau. Just want to mention that I do, when I was saying it, I said Jagatah Pitarau, and that is a kind of that's a phonetic sandhi. If a visarga is followed by a p, it tends to become the sound f. Alright, so Jagatah Pitarau Vande. So I hope, I mean, there's a lot of profound meaning in that if you think further on that line, on those lines. Let's look at the last quotation by Sri Aurobindo where he talks about the huge contributions of these three authors, mainly Valmiki, Vyasa and Kalidasa. So he says, Valmiki, Vyasa and Kalidasa are the essence of the history of ancient India. If all else were lost, they would still be its sole and sufficient cultural history. Their poems are types and exponents of three periods in the development of the human soul. Types and exponents also of the three great powers which dispute and clash in the imperfect and half-formed temperament and harmonize in the formed and perfect. At the same time, their works are pictures at once minute and grandiose of three moods of our Aryan civilization, of which the first was predominantly moral, the second predominantly intellectual, and the third predominantly material. Just want to mention here that Sri Aurobindo is not very easy to comprehend, so just take a little time to read that, because he is saying, he's giving a huge amount of reverence. I mean, he's talking of the greatness of these poets, and that they represent the essence of the entire Indian civilization. And I'd just like to mention here the word Aryan, which doesn't really mean the Aryan race, because that's not how the word Aryan was represented even in the Vedas. Aryan basically means of that noble character, that noble spirit here. Okay, so for these few words, a few references, and Shantirastu. So, Shantirastu, and may peace be yours. Sanskritasya adhyanam avashyam kurvantu. Shabdanam prayoge abhyasam kurvantu. So make these words part of a practice, and you're bound to become more and more familiar with this language and the beauty of the Sanskrit world. So, dhanyavadaha, punarmilamaha.